right. Well, sorry
Hi.
we're late, guys. We were a little confused ourselves on the time. I said it for one time and we had another one in our head. So
Entirely, pretty much my fault, to be honest. But nice of Tiger not to blame me for that.
no, it was not your fault. I actually had the wrong time in my head after I said it for an earlier time because
Hi, Leaping Lizard. Did I miss the live? No, you didn't.
no, nobody missed it. We're just not getting started. Hopefully, within a few minutes, some people will get in here. So I am curious, though, before I say anything about the series, what did you think of the series in general?
I thought it should have probably been 2 different documentaries. It was very good. It was very well done. Obviously, there was a bit of dramatic license, but I felt it dealt with 2 very serious issues. We'll have this unsolved crime, which may or may not have been linked to the other topic that was going on. And I felt that the 2 weren't necessarily linked. But it was, both parts were interesting. But I felt like it was 2 separate subjects, sort of, and I know it was related to the people involved and some of the allegations, but I felt like there was 2 very serious topics and there were maybe 2 separate issues. But
Right. Well, I don't know if I thought there needed to be 2 different sets, but so, I started out watching the series the first time, obviously. I've watched, this is now the 3rd set of times that I've watched this series because I really, I can't say enjoy. That's not really the right word, but
what is it really?
Was fascinated. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa, darling.
Have you been able to watch this series? So my very first time watching it, I'm thinking, okay, it's a murder of a nun, and I have a special place in my heart for nuns. I grew up going to Catholic grade school. I went to an all-girl Catholic high school. Yeah, there were some nuns that I didn't care for, but there were, the ones that are really good, they stick with you. And
it's like anything else, isn't it? It's
right.
Any education, any board of life, you've got your good people that are wonderful. And
right.
The good people. Yeah.
And so I watched this thinking that that's what it was about. And so they, of course, they start out talking about her, Sister Cathy, and, like a little bit about, her she became nun, blah, blah, blah. And then they go into
she was, yes.
They go into the murder, and then you go from the murder, then they start going into when they start looking into who might have done it. Well, first they think she's missing, right? Mm-hmm. They don't think she's murdered. First they think she's missing, so they're looking for a missing nun, and
or not, just the case may be. Yeah.
And then they find her body, and but in looking for why who might have taken her, I mean they pretty much knew somebody took her.
Yeah.
The
reason they knew that is because a car was missing, and then a car mysteriously reappeared parked haphazardly with the keys on the ignition and open.
Correct.
And it couldn't have got there by itself. And
once they found her dead, they knew she couldn't have taken it there.
Exactly.
Because she was dead. Mm-hmm. And so then it branches off into what could be considered a huge conspiracy with what was going on at the school that she was or had been teaching at, but there were the whole archdiocese really was embroiled in this whole sexual abuse scandal. And so this is like a little piece of that comes out in this murder of this nun, and I really didn't expect it to take that divergence, but once it did, I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. It was almost like reliving that whole scandal all over again in a different way, right, for me. Hi, Evie
Hi,
Scorpio.
Evie. It's my girl.
Um, I I have to say, before we start talking about all the details of each piece of it, when I got to the point where they were bringing in the abuse that was going on at the school, Archbishop Kehoe High School,
Yeah.
and who they thought could have been connected with the murder through that scandal, and who all was involved in that scandal. It was I knew that Baltimore had much more problems with it than we did here in St. Louis, but ours was not small. And that's something I'll be able to show you later. But um, it hits very close to home because I had a priest in our parish actually that came in when I was at the end of grade school. I went into high school, but my sister was left with that priest, and she, after the allegation came out with him, she told me that she thought it was true.
Right.
And so I knew that this was absolutely a possibility. So I actually don't disbelieve a lot of that portion of the documentary. Of course, you have to look at it like it's a documentary. Documentaries are typically one-sided, right? So this documentary is, to me, very sided on. I think it started out siding with trying to find out who killed her, because there are two people that are seriously trying to find out who killed her.
Yes. Very
But
serious.
then it takes this huge, off onto the church involvement. But that's basically my take on, and that was the first go around. I've watched it 2 more times, so obviously.
I remember that feeling that, I didn't see that coming. The
Right,
sort of
right.
journey into the Catholic
It
Church.
was
I was
very
like, oh,
slight when they did the transition. It was very slight, and then all of a sudden, like, it got worse and got worse and got worse. And
the stories. Oh, the stories these ladies told. Oh.
so,
Hi, Devils. Hi, Nick Nack. Hi, Mrs. Roger Rabbit.
did any of you guys in the chat watch this series?
I know Evie saw it.
Because I'm willing to let anybody come up here and talk with us about it if you've watched it. Obviously, if you haven't watched it, that's
That
going
would
to
be
be hard to
awesome.
talk about.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I tell you what, I will, since I can not let crazy kooks in, I'll just put the
You
link in
are
the
the
chat,
gatekeeper.
and they can try to get in or not. But so at the end, did you feel like you had a feeling of who you thought did it? I mean, like, with certainty.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. I think it's much less involved with the actual topic at hand, but I'm glad that the information and the topic at hand came out. The person that I felt it was somebody who was close to her, who told a bit of a tall tale about where he was that night, and he had motive as well, and he even admitted he had motive. Normally, when these things happen, you have to apply a bit of Occam's razor. The most obvious answer is normally the one that's right. And in his case, and I also don't feel that the other murder of that lady, what's her name? Let's have a look. I've got Joyce.
Mrs. Roger Rabbit, if you do not have Netflix and you want to watch the series, I can either do a watch party, or I can stream it in Discord for you.
I could do that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I didn't feel that Joyce's crime was
So
related.
I think my view differs than yours. I have firsthand knowledge of the Catholic Church and what it's capable of, and when it is back in that time period, they had a lot of money and a lot of power in all of the big cities. And I also know how bad the cover-up was. I don't think that way high up it started intentionally, but I think at the higher ups, when they decided how they were going to handle those things, they were, I mean, it's a fact. The psychiatry board that they went to in the U.S. for advice as to how to handle that were giving false information because they were under the assumption that pedophiles could be rehabilitated. We now know that that's not possible.
Mm.
So I actually think that, yes, it probably was physically the person that you think it is. But I do think the priest was involved.
It's involved.
Well,
If
because he
that's
had a
it.
brother, on the police force.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, there were just too many things. The way that the cases from like Jane Doe and Jane Roe and then the other people how they were handled. I mean, that's so typical of what I saw happening here, right?
I'm feeling the frustration. Like, I've felt as somebody who's obviously not been involved with the Catholic Church, but I know people who have been. It's not, it's one of those things. But if I very much got frustrated at what I call arse covering, like, cover your ass, say nothing, didn't happen, denial, and I got a bit frustrated at that. But
Yeah.
like you said, what you just said sort of leans into that the advice they were being given was wrong. So they maybe thought, well, we'll do this and then we can make it better. But that they didn't have the ability to do that in the end.
Well, I think, okay, so when the scandal first broke countrywide, I mean, like, it
Mm-hmm.
was pieces. It was the large archdiocese, and believe it or not, even though St. Louis is not a humongous city compared to Baltimore or LA okay, St. Louis has, maybe not so much now, but back then, mostly Catholic people living there. So we have like parishes on every corner, right? And every parish had a school. And so the church was big. And when I think what happened, I think the people up at the top that make the decisions of, okay, what are we going to do, as they started getting more of these, I think, let's say they started out with 10 complaints. They're like, okay, first they're shuffling them around, but they weren't shuffling them around and making sure they were not in places where they couldn't have access to kids. And then they go to the psychiatry board, and the psychiatry board, says, okay, so you can send them to this place. We can rehabilitate them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get rehabilitated and they get sent back out into parishes where they have access to kids again.
Seems like
And
a good idea to me. Sorry.
and here's the thing, I have so much knowledge of like how they, okay, my daughter used to be a Girl Scout, and then we went from Girl Scouts to American Heritage Girls. Both places I was leaders. Both places I had to do, classes, online classes about, well, actually, no, the one for when I was a Girl Scout leader for our parish over there. I actually had to go sit down at a class where they taught us about child abuse and how to watch out, because we had to have this to work with children. We had to know what to look for because we became mandatory reporters at that point, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So, you have to learn but the problem is, when you take one of those classes, if you were actually a pedophile, you're learning how to go about doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
If you're a mandatory reporter, you know what you should be looking for, so therefore know what to hide. Yeah.
So and the Catholic Church is really run by a bunch of men, and so, I mean, to me, it's just logical that this was doomed to failure, that they were going to be able to handle this properly. And then I think what happened was it just exploded, right?
Mm.
And then they realized, oh my gosh, we have all these people. What I got really mad about in this movie was this particular priest, Father Joseph, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maskell.
Yes.
I don't understand how there was not enough red flags, right? I do not understand that. Okay, I do understand, you had the girls at Kehoe, right?
Mhm.
Of course, they were too afraid because they were too afraid to go tell their parents. I know why. When you grow up in a Catholic school, right?
Right.
Like, especially when you start off small, the way that the way that you're taught your religious beliefs and everything, the way that all that information comes in, like priests and nuns are like one step below God. I mean, in
Yes.
your head as a little
Uh-huh.
kid,
Yes.
right?
No, I understand. A lot of them said that, didn't they? They said that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So you it's kind of like your parents. You don't think your parents can do anything wrong,
No,
or
well,
they're not going to ever
exactly.
lie to you. It's you
Yes.
have them on that pedestal when you're a kid.
Mhm.
And it takes a really long time to kind of realize, okay, these people are human too,
Yeah.
once you get older. But
Yeah.
you don't understand that as a kid. So when you think about these girls in high school, they're going through puberty, they're, you know, and yeah, it was all girls.
Mhm.
And he purposefully had his office at the opposite end of, okay, so if
Yeah.
one girl came forward, I could see where they would say, you know, no, I don't know. But all of these, and then you take Father Maskell was so embedded in that, and then they moved him, and then there's something else, and then you
Yeah.
know,
They kept moving him around, didn't they? So,
and then you find out at the very end that there was a boy who actually reported him much before all this happened. So had they done something back then, Sister Cathy would have never been murdered. I mean, in my opinion, because of
yeah.
where I think that
Uh-huh.
the murder was orchestrated from.
And all of this could have been avoided. All the things that happened to these girls, this trauma, that these women who they now are, who have been impacted by it. Because I don't never disbelieve the impact of it and the things happen to them for a second. Why? Where do you get these stories from?
So
You
Lisa
know,
says, yeah, I grew up Irish Catholic and went to a convent school until I was 16, and have to say I never experienced or witnessed any abuse or anything worrying. The nuns and priests were just wonderful. See, that's just it with me. Like, I was a girl, so I spent all my time with the nuns because they want you to become a nun, right? So
yeah,
we had these weekend retreats where we would go and stay in the convent, all the girls in our class. And we would go and we would lay all of our sleeping bags down on that hard floor in the basement of the convent, and
that
that's where we
sounds
would sleep
fun.
all night. And then you'd get up and you'd help them with their chores, and you'd have your prayers and all of those things that even if you don't become a nun, which when I was young, I did want to become a nun because I thought that in order to be a Catholic school teacher, you needed to be a nun.
I wanted to become a nun for a little while, but it's just because I wanted to dance around and sing "The Hills Are Alive." But other than that,
um, you know, so I didn't have that interaction with the priest. The priest at our parish was an old guy who catered to the elderly in the parish
Mhm.
because he wanted money. He was wanting to climb the chain in the
Yeah,
archdiocese, right? So what happened? Uh, so then you realize, okay, because of my experience with the uh, abuse thing that happened, the priest in our parish who was accused of it, who was not not charged at the first go around, but then the archdiocese later determined that there were credible um, complaints against him, and they defrocked him. And as a matter of fact, because I looked this up, because the last time I looked, he was not on the list.
right,
When I looked this up for this discussion, he died last year.
right.
Um, Now he was the one who was dealing with all the altar boys, and he was a very good cook, so all the boys would love going over to the rectory for him to cook, right?
Yes.
So that's a perfect situation, kind of like, this priest was the counselor and chaplain for this high school full of girls. Um, and a lot of these priests, I don't think it matters if it's girls or boys. I don't think, because obviously the first the guy in the series who came out and said that so the murder happened in 69. He reported him in 67.
So a couple of years beforehand.
And what did they do? I mean, and the thing was, he told his mom, and his mom didn't go through the chain. Like, she didn't go to the pastor and say, look, no, she went straight to the archdiocese office, went straight to the bishop and said, and let me tell you, back then, if some mom pounded in there like that, they certainly would have allowed her in to talk to him and said, look, this is what he's done to my son. You do something now. And because she did that, they moved him. They didn't deal with the problem, but they moved him so he couldn't do that to her son anymore. But then what happened? They moved him to Archbishop Kehoe High School. And then,
maybe they thought he was, he had a tendency towards boys, so they moved him to a school full of girls.
That could, because back then they didn't understand this. And back then, that was before they found out from psychiatrists that you could cure this, right? I think that I actually think this could have been longer. I think they could do another one if they can dig up some more information or people to talk to.
I'm certain there are more people with information, yes.
Because when you look at what the girls said, and here's where you go, okay, you're looking at a murder case, but you have to kind of listen to what these girls are saying about this priest, because it actually has a lot to do with why you think he would have motive, right? Because every one of them, the stories they tell and the differences, I mean, it was sick. He had a gynecologist involved, a gynecologist who admitted that he allowed this priest to stay in the room while he was doing exams on these girls. You have girls, in detail, not so much in detail in the series, but enough detail that that when they told their story to their lawyer or the police or whoever, it was a very detailed description of what happened to them. And they know of hundreds of girls that did this, but then you only see that there was a case where there was 2, and they didn't even want anybody to find out because they were afraid the church would come after them.
Yeah.
And the church would. Trust me. Right? And so when you look at all this, and all of this is against one priest, Sister Cathy knew. Right? Sister Cathy knew this was going on, and because this one student, let her know that something inappropriate was going on, and Sister Cathy had promised her she would take care of it, and then Sister Cathy was all of a sudden no longer teaching at that school, and was given this wonderful new assignment, right? I'm sorry. There's too much coincidence there, and I don't believe in coincidence, so you can't tell me he's not involved somehow.
I don't know that he is, but I know he was a very horrible man, and what disturbs me most is he's in a trusted position, and he's also got a degree in psychology, which instead of using to help or benefit people, he's used to benefit himself by using it to manipulate people.
Right.
That's really perturbing to me. That people would talk him up because of all of these benefits to him.
Evie says, Sister Cathy seemed to be the type of person that was ready to do the right thing, blow the whistle on Father Haskell and others, including a cop. This is true. This is very true. And I'm going to tell you, Sister Cathy, the way that her students talked about her is the way that any Catholic school girl will feel about a good nun who cares about you as a student, as a person, willing to help you, all those kinds of things, right?
I really, really loved her. Even now, I think Jean was saying she still loves her to this day.
Well, yeah, they just want to find who killed her because that's how much they loved her. And this is like, 50 years later, they're looking. Still, I mean, they're all grandmothers and everything, and this is what they're spending their spare time doing.
It shows you what the thought of her as a person to still be pursuing this all these years later.
I also, you also see how they had put in, what did she put in? Like 4 or 5 times now to the FBI for their file under the, the Freedom of Information Act, right? And they still haven't gotten it back.
Yeah, odd that.
I'm telling you, the church is more powerful than people understand. I think they're not. I don't think they're that way right now, but then absolutely.
But all you need, if you look, because what I was reminded of on the second watching when I've skipped through, I've watched most of it, and I'm thinking I can skip this bit because I know that I remember it very vividly.
Right.
Bits of it that stay with you. But I was thinking of Epstein and how everybody kept the secrets, and once you get involved in this kind of abuse situation that is forever held over your head, you are then owned by the person who watched you do that.
Well, right. Well, and he had cops.
Yeah.
And he had businessmen coming and being with these girls, and God knows who else.
What I thought, is they've got that going on, and it's quite.
That helps keep everybody quiet. If the police, I mean, he doesn't even have to pay the money to the police. And you have to think about this too. This is another aspect that I don't know if a lot of people know about within the Catholic Church. So priests, when they take their when they don't take final vows, they just take their vows. Or become a priest, and they are allowed to have money. Like, they're allowed to keep their money. They're allowed to be from a rich family and keep that money. They are allowed to have a lot of money. And this happens to be School Sisters of Notre Dame, which also taught me in my schools. So I know a lot about them, and they take a vow of poverty, which means that even though they teach and they earn a salary, that salary goes into a pot. Okay. So they get an allowance out of that pot every month to go buy their toothpaste, deodorant, because they live in a community. The groceries come out of the community fund. Like, they don't get to have anything. They cannot have anything. They cannot have, jewelry over a certain amount, even if their family gives them, buys them a necklace for Christmas or something. Like, it has to be very simple, and it can't. So it is possible that, Maskell had a family that had money, so it's very possible that he had access to money outside the church that he could have,
used to pay people for things, for instance.
Right. Or he could have been making money from the people coming in that he was, he could have been basically selling off these girls, unfortunately.
I've got a little bit of a synopsis of what happened.
Mrs. Roger Rabbit said, I thought priests took the same vow as that, only Jesuits. That's correct. Archdiocesan priests do not take a vow of poverty at all. They can have as much money as they want.
Surprise, surprise. Yeah, that figures. The world of misogyny. Right.
Let's see. I'm just trying to make sure that we haven't missed anything pertinent to this. What did you think about, okay, so let's talk about Jean.
Yes, Jean.
I'm very interested to hear your perspective.
Well, I thought she was very spirited, but there was some conflicting information in things that she said. And the one main one for me, because me being who I am, I was really focused on the crime itself and the details of testimony around that. And she claimed that there was a detective, is it Bernhold, early on?
Yes.
To see where she was found, John Bernhold, and he said that he was claiming he didn't have time to investigate. And then there was the other guy who seemed a bit fishy, but still came forward, to his credit, and said that he found that he went to the body and that she was cold where she was found, where she was found, and it was been cold because it was November 7th. She went missing. She was found in January. And he said there was no decay on the body, which would make sense if it was cold. That figures. But then Jean says that she was taken to see this dead body by, I'm looking at my notes. Father Maskell took her. And she says there were maggots on her face. She says
I knew you were going to bring this up.
Wiping Cathy's face and crying, "Help me, help me." And Father Maskell had said, "You see what happens when you say bad things about
That's
people."
correct.
And I'm like, I gave it a lot of leeway.
Can I
a nightmare arising from?
Can I make a suggestion though?
Please.
Okay. So I also was stuck on that too.
Mm-hmm.
Until you listen to the coroner who did the autopsy.
Right.
Okay. And he's actually really well known and very good and he's done some really big cases. Okay.
Oh, tell me what I missed. Tell me.
Yeah. So he says they do an interview with him and they ask him point blank about, what do you think about Jean saying that she was taken to this body by Father Maskell and she saw these maggots, and yet everybody is saying there's no way there could have been any maggots because of the temperature. Mm-hmm. And what he said was because they looked up the dates, because he had his notes, right? So they had looked at the temperatures of those days, and those days when she was gone was very warm for that time period.
Right.
And he said what could have happened was that there could have been flies that had gotten into her mouth, right? And made larvae, and there could have been maggots in her mouth. And I mean, you're young and distraught. Maybe you turn 2 maggots into a bunch of maggots that you'd,
but they could have got in her eyes. That's where they typically would lay the eggs and the
right,
maggots.
Sorry
for the detail, folks, but that's how it is. They get into wet areas.
Right.
And lay the eggs there.
And she was naked, so there's also other places that could have been. And
so
I was skeptical of her, okay, at the beginning of her story. I do know that obviously you can have repressed memories that can come out later. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things for me that makes her more credible than most, not to say that everything she says is what happened, because how do you know? She doesn't even know. She doesn't even say. She doesn't even say this is for a fact. This is what happened. But one of the things that she did and continues to still do is she didn't want to talk to anybody. She didn't want to meet anybody. She didn't want to talk to them. She didn't want her memories to be tainted by anything anybody else said. Mm-hmm. Now, people who are using that to their advantage would not have been that way typically, right? So I do think that she's trying to do the right thing. I have no doubt that she had things happen to her.
Oh, absolutely.
I have no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
Are all of
even at worst, I was thinking it was misremembered. That was that was what I was thinking. She might have misremembered it, and because it was so horrible.
Right. And this time I paid really close attention, like when the coroner talked, because last time I think I kind of just didn't pay as much attention as I should have. But yeah, when he said that about the maggots, I thought, well, that's really the one sticking point that somebody would have, saying, okay, she's completely lying. This is no good, right? Yeah.
But even then, I wouldn't have said she was completely lying. There's something about that story. He could have, obviously, it's a great opportunity to intimidate a child into silence, isn't it?
Well, what I think is interesting, too, is she ends up bringing up this brother, Bob, that she mentions later, that she can't remember his face. But if you think about it, other girls mentioned being left in the room with another, like he would leave them in a room with another priest
and let them do things.
Which to me led credibility to the fact that there could have been somebody else in the room. Or, gosh, he was selling them out to God knows who.
Evie said she didn't she feel really guilty because she blames herself for Sister Cathy's murder. She did. She
Yes,
said she
yes,
loved her and she killed her. I think that's what she said.
she did say that.
Mm-hmm.
This whole thing was just so sad, and it
It
could have been
was.
prevented. It really could have been prevented. I mean, to me, the blood of her is really on the archdiocese's hands, the police's hands. I think that the fact that all that stuff disappeared, or they can't find it, or it didn't get from the
It's
city to the county or whatever, I'm sorry. I
a lot
have
of
problems
missing
with that.
information is a lot of coincidences. It's a lot of incompetence in paperwork, isn't it, for everybody to lose everything? Because that's pretty much
Well, and think about this. That's it's not like some hodunk town,
no.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a big place. And there are still today cases being solved from DNA from earlier than that. So
Yeah.
obviously there were competent police, you know, even back then to take, I what do you think about Father okay. I can't ever remember his name because it's such a goofy name. Father
Uh,
Goob? Father Goob. Well, he used to be Father Goob. What's his name?
Jerry.
Jerry Goob.
Jerry
Goob?
Goob. I think Jerry is the one who killed her.
Yeah.
Mm.
I
I think he had motive. I think there was possibly, given what you said, I can see the perspective that Maskell might have been involved, but he was also with the church. He'd said at one point that he loved her and he wanted them to run away together. She turned him down. There's motive. Also, she was saying she wanted to have a serious conversation with him that day. And he said, looking back, he assumes, but I think he knew what the conversation was about and maybe spoke to Maskell about it before that.
so I do have thoughts of him doing it. I'm not 100% sure that he didn't. I I do think that even if he did it, I do think Maskell's involved. I
It's
think
degraded
I
relationship,
think
I'm sure.
I'm going to tell you, there's no way that I think that he didn't know about what was going on in that school.
No, I think he
No
knew
way.
what was going on.
He
Yeah.
knew. Um
But he was
I
someone.
also found it extremely interesting that he left the priesthood and changed religions. And I'll
Mm,
tell you why. Okay?
mm,
When our scandal here broke out, there was this wonderful priest we had here at this parish. He had moved to the parish that my mom sings at, and he's a blind priest. Well, he's no longer a priest, but um, blind, wonderful. I never could understand how he could memorize the reading for the gospel that he was supposed to read that day like so well. He I really really liked him, and when all of this happened, he was so devastated that all of this went on around him, and he had no clue. Right
yeah.
now, he left the priesthood. He didn't stop being a Catholic. Right. He only left the priesthood.
Yeah, didn't completely change his
Right,
ideology. Yes.
right.
Uh-huh.
So that concerned me when I found out that he's now a Methodist minister, and I'm like, okay, so he's still a minister.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I think he had anything to do with the actual abuse or anything, because there wasn't enough information there to even try
No,
to
it didn't
consider
seem
that.
like there was anything like any connection between him and that.
Well,
But it
and if
was,
there was, would sister Kathy have such a relationship with him? I doubt it.
no.
But um I just found it so strange. And why did they bring his wife into the conversation? Was that to lend credibility to him? I really didn't understand that. I thought that was a little weird because she had nothing to do with what happened back then, right?
Yeah,
So I don't know. I'm a little
it's just paint him as the comfortable family man now. That could have been Cathy kind of thing. I don't know. It just, to me, people. I mean, obviously, the other people say take what he says with a pinch of salt. I don't think it was a pinch that was mentioned. I think it was a mountain of salt.
Right.
His alibi kind of fell down at the end there. The guy that he claimed he was with, I was like, no, wasn't
right. That really lends you to go, what is going on here? Something very weird. And the fact that so
the
that
fact that he was very specific about what movie he was watching,
and he had tickets, but
yeah, and
they went to dinner and had Italian, food, and
had Italian food, and we went to see this movie and this movie. It's very specific.
And he had the ticket stubs.
Yeah.
Now, what guy saves the ticket stubs from a movie that he sees with another guy?
Well,
I mean, you know what I mean.
What do you want?
He was a priest, I have to tell you, though, one thing that really bothered me, and not that it was necessarily their fault, because I think this was the movie making's fault or the series making's fault, when they say that he took bread, and he did the math. Okay, and they have just a regular loaf of bread, and a bottle. That's not the way that works. There are rules and regulations about what they can consecrate and what they can't, and there's no way that's so. If that's what he told them, then he was doing a no in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
he's possibly, well, he was quite willing to run away with her, and she was devout enough. She said no.
Right.
She was a nun. That was what she wanted to do.
Well, she wasn't even sure she was going to take her final vows.
Yeah.
But that's not what she wanted to do. Well,
she didn't want to be. I don't think she wanted to run off and be a wifey. I don't think
I agree with you.
She saw for herself.
I think right. Yeah. It's really a shame, because if she had taken her final vows and stayed a teacher, there's a lot of kids that missed out on a really great teacher there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did you think about Sister Phillips? I mean, obviously she's dead, and they couldn't. She's the roommate of her when she moved out. They were really good friends. They were in the convent together.
Oh, yes. The one that was worried because she didn't come home late.
Right.
She called Coops, didn't she? And she said that she's come late. I don't know much about her. Is it Debbie? What's her name?
Let's see if I
did make a note about her. Which is that she's
Russell Phillips. Sister Russell Phillips.
So she basically that she was worried, and she had a 3-hour conversation with Jerry about what to do, and that it wasn't right that she wasn't home. She obviously loved her to bits because she's concerned she's not home, so much so she's ringing Jerry, and that's another thing that rang alarm bells for me. Why she assuming Jerry would know where they're not together anymore, they're friends, but why is the next person she goes to is Jerry? It's very odd that she's out too late and she rings Jerry first. It just seems, it was are you getting acquainted?
Well, maybe she knew that they were supposed to be having that conversation, right?
Yes.
So
I just thought very, very didn't want to say anything.
There were some things in there that caused me concern about her role. Now it could be, I think she knew something was going on in that high school. Now, it could be because she was scared, or threat, and with what all was going on, who wouldn't be, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But the fact that she, there goes my dogs. I'm just waiting for him to start barking. The fact that she seemed to me to be less cooperative than I would have thought with the police led me to believe that she knew more than she was telling them.
Mm-hmm.
And that bothers me, because I'm sorry, right is right and wrong is wrong. And I don't care if it's the church coming down on you or not. To me, it's, I don't know, in my head, knowing that many girls were being continually abused would would lead me to think, okay, well, even if they off me, at least it stops that.
At least it's out. Yes.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So I kind of have a problem with that.
Yeah, I thought she wasn't much of a friend because it's like they were really close. They were seen together talking all the time.
And everybody, all the girls from the school seemed to think that they were like, bosom buddies. And then you find out how little she said to the police. And I thought, so to me, there was two things. Either, I mean, I don't know. You can't be that close to somebody and not know that abuse is going on. I mean, you would tell your best friend that you had this information and that you were scared and that you were worried because you would have to plan what you were going to do.
Yes.
And
I think the plan here was to tell Jerry, wasn't it? That was the plan. To tell Jerry, I think.
I think that whole thing got all muddled up because I think you had the relationship and it's not unusual for those things to happen, right? And usually the nun is the one that says, yeah, no, this is my path, this is the greater good, whatever. And usually the man moves off and does his thing. I don't know, it just seems so complicated there because I think he knew about what was going on at the school. I don't know if it was a week before, 3 months before, I don't know how long he knew, but he's so very didn't talk about any of that. Nobody even broached or if they did, they didn't put it on there because I don't know what his reaction would have been. But why didn't they ask him? Are you sure she didn't tell you before? Because I can't imagine she would have waited till she was ready to, break off their friendship because he wanted more than she did, to tell him about that.
Yeah.
Because she had already had to get moved, she had already had to have said something to somebody higher up of what was going on, right? And so you can't tell me she wouldn't have told him and Sister Russell Phillips before she went to those people to tell them, because then all of a sudden she got this wonderful new assignment to try teaching as a nun in a public school. I mean, come on.
And then you've got Coop claiming that he assumed she was going to tell him that night.
Right.
When he clearly would have known beforehand.
But yet they have that letter, knowing that she wrote that letter to him. And that was probably more of what the conversation was going to be that night.
Yeah.
What did you think about the necklace?
The necklace has got me a little confounded because that was from those my uncle. There was two my uncle stories, wasn't there? My uncle, Cathy. And that was the one from. Let's have a look. Which uncle was it? It's Edgar.
Edgar Davidson.
Edgar was the first one, not him. Excuse me, chewing on my fingers like an anxiety-ridden fool. Right. Billy Schmidt.
Billy Schmidt, yeah.
That was the one. Now, that was fishy. I could understand why they would get suspicious because he said it was a present. Was it for our birthday? But it had the wrong birthstone. It had a green gem instead, and it also had a bell on it. So the suspicion was, of course, that this person had killed Sister Cathy, and that was the engagement gift she bought. But for me, I was like, I kind of say that, I think, but it's a weird engagement gift to buy because it's just, unless, I don't know, is they're accustomed to just buy the female part of the engaged couple a gift?
I think you have to understand the kind of nun that Sister Cathy seemed to be, the kind of person she seemed to be. That her sister said that seemed very much like something she would have done.
Right, yeah.
So I don't even know how to describe my thought on this, because it has been my experience with those really good nuns, and I mean the really good nuns, the very faithful, the very stoic, the very helpful, the very loving, the very they kind of are ascended above a little bit normal people, because they're kind of thinking on a bit of a more spiritual plane, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times the things they give you aren't things that you expect for presents, right?
Right.
They're very meaningful, and probably more packed with meaning than you even realize when they give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think from everything that Cathy's sister said about the necklace, she seems pretty convinced
That it was
that
him.
that it was bought for her.
Mm.
Um,
And again, frustratingly, Billy Schmidt is dead. So
right.
we can't pick his brain anymore because we don't know anything about
But
it.
they did interview Edgar.
Yes, they did.
Unfortunately, he seems like he's got Alzheimer's and other issues. So it's hard to tell whether or not he had
Because
anything
Edgar
to
actually
do.
denied it, but he admitted what he'd said to her.
But if you go full on extreme conspiracy, you can actually wrap all these people up into a present, and they could all be involved.
True. True.
Because you could think about it like this. Okay, even going as far as saying that the brother Bob person that Jean is concerned killed her, or was told killed her in the school. Let's say that that's what happened, right? And then they needed people to get rid of her. Well, maybe these two guys were people that came to do things that they shouldn't, right?
Mm.
And so they, had him on speed dial and called him up and say, "Hey, we need your help with something." I mean, it could really be a far out conspiracy, but it's not impossible.
I'm looking at it. They said that like he had dreams and there was an argument heard by the little one at the
Mhm.
time she was little, and
Mhm.
she says that we got rid of a body behind the shop,
Right.
and that our body was found near their store.
Right.
Um, and they had that argument that was overheard. It was like, see, it's hard to tie in for me because that seems like a separate thing. But I understand what you mean. Because it was a very weird place she was found in. It wasn't like it was.
Somebody would have had to know it.
Yeah, it
But
wasn't. It wasn't like it was just somewhere you could happen upon. It was a location that was more known to hunters, and it was hunters that found her.
so you have to. So when the Catholic Church is involved in nefarious things,
Mm-hmm.
um, it always ends up being very convoluted. So to me, it seems possible that they could have said, "Okay, we need this body disposed of. Here's exactly what you need to do," with
Mm-hmm.
knowing in their head that these guys would be suspects. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whoever was the major conspirator, which, okay, if you look at it, I mean, of all the intelligence that there was among all of these people, it would have been Maskell.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
But
so these people
you
ignored.
had you had but think about all the people involved in just the abuse of the girls, that
Mm-hmm.
nobody ever came forward,
Mm-hmm.
nobody ever admitted anything, nobody said I saw anything. No, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. And what about all those files they buried?
I just want to say that Mrs. Roger Rabbit said if she's going to a bridal shower, it's common to buy a gift for just the bride.
That's correct.
So that makes sense for me. We don't have bridal showers here. Not really. We'll have a hen night where the
You let the
women
hens loose in the room?
basically the bride wears a sash, they all get drunk and end up on their faces. Basically, because
Oh,
That's what us British people do. We get drunk to celebrate, basically. But we don't have a bridal shower as such. Sometimes we do it. We've started to do it.
That's like the Bachelor. That's like the Bachelor and Bachelorette parties.
That's what yeah.
So we have a bridal shower in addition to that, where all the women come and they play goofy games, and they give the bride presents, and sometimes it's like lingerie and stuff like that, or something maybe on their wedding. I mean, it just be anything really.
Well, we don't tend to do that. Like I said, we've started to do it same as baby showers. We didn't have baby showers. We've only just started to do that, which I think is a great idea because it gives the community a chance to get together and give you something to help you out. It takes the sting off the cost of enormous cost of having a little baby. You don't realize how many things you need, and also allows people who've got experience in raising children to buy you things that you don't know that you need yet.
Okay, wait a minute. Lisa says, I can't help it. I know this is a serious subject, but Loopy Lisa says, we have stag night and hen night. Why wouldn't it be hen night and rooster night?
I don't know. There is no logic. The stag is a stag and we're just hens. It is actually quite disgusting and misogynistic. It really is. But that's just, you would think it would be like stagging what deer? Or head and cock. You'd think it would be, but it's not. But I mean, they are an event in the United Kingdom. People get dressed up in fancy dress. The stags especially will get dressed up in fancy dress.
Okay, so Evie Scorpio says those files got water damaged. I don't disagree with that, but I'm going to tell you, I believe the guy, when the guy said that helped dig those files out, that he saw pictures that were still visible. Now, you tell me that those weren't his trophies, right?
I absolutely believe those pictures existed because was it the woman who said, I didn't see any pictures. The woman, I forget her name. But
the federal district attorney. I wrote her name down. Hang on.
I didn't like her.
I'm pretty sure I wrote her name down. Sharon A.H. May.
She was talking up Maskell as well. She just I didn't like.
And the doctor, I even wrote his name down. The gynecologist, Dr. Christian Richter.
Christian Sphincter. I just immediately in my head because.
But I really think those files. Had they not. I am quite sure that the archdiocese leaned on them. I know for a fact that the archdiocese leaned on them to get this to happen like that. I guarantee the answers were in those boxes.
Yeah, I believe so. And people said they saw pictures, and then this woman who I didn't like on site is going, no, there were no. I saw no pictures.
I don't like the way she was answering the questions. Like, how dare you ask this of me?
How rude!
Right. Like she's never been asked questions like that before. Please.
It's like if you're partaking in an interview and you know what the subject matter is, obviously she did. So if you know what the subject matter is, you're going to expect to be asked questions like that. You can't then get offended. She seemed offended the whole time.
How did you feel about the poor? I kind of felt bad for him. The officer that's now dealing with the case.
Yeah, the one
that was answering the questions.
Yeah.
I think there was a couple times there he was a little stunned with the information they brought to him that he didn't know about. Mm-hmm. And he was obviously looking at their legal person as to what he could and couldn't say. But he was clearly stunned at least twice that I remember seeing him.
I don't envy that job. Don't envy that job. The fact that he has to look at somebody to see what he can say is an awful predicament to be in. How can you do your job like that? How can you get to the truth when you're being told what you can and can't say, what you can and can't ask? What it should be out there. The solving of the crime and the getting to the bottom of things.
Well, at this point, realistically, if they solve the case, right? it's quite likely the person who did it's dead.
Yeah.
So to me at this point, I don't understand why they won't discuss it. I understand they don't discuss open cases, but when clearly the person, I mean, even the person that's left standing of their suspect list, I mean, he's not going to hurt a flea. He can't hardly talk. He
Yeah.
can't hardly move. I mean, he's, you know, but all they want to do, all Gemma and what's her name? Gemma and the other one's name.
Gemma and I've got them written. Abby.
Abby, right.
Yeah.
All they want to do is find out who killed her.
Mm-hmm. That's all they want to know.
And they're quite certain that Maskell had something to do with it. And I think that it would put their minds at ease if they could figure out, you know, who killed her. I mean, odds are it's not a random one. This one's not a random one.
Mm-hmm.
Random ones are so rare anyway. This one's clearly somebody she knew.
Well, yeah, and there's so many people wrapped up in this. So many people. So many likely anybody who's kept a secret or not given information when they should have done.
Right.
There was so much of that clandestine behavior. Like I hate that shit. I really do. And there's so much of it. It's difficult to tell. That's why it's so, like you said, this is so convoluted. And
right.
You said that that's what the church does when it covers things up. It makes things convoluted. And I can see how you would maybe argue that these two guys, these who later went on to be drunks, and one of them was kind of a drunken anyway, could have been set up to be fall guys for this if it came to it. They could be used for that. So there is that.
But do you remember seeing and hearing about a Magnus priest at that school?
No.
You don't remember? It was like early on. I think he had something to do with the hierarchy of the archdiocese. I'm going to show you what I pulled up.
Right.
Okay. So this is the list from the Archdiocese of Baltimore. See it up here. Mm-hmm. Magnus E. Neal, which I had to assume was that priest. I don't know. In 1992, a woman alleged inappropriate conduct by Magnus. The Archdiocese reported the allegation to the Maryland Attorney General's office. Since that time, the Archdiocese has received numerous allegations of sexual abuse by Magnus, which have been reported to law enforcement. Father E. Neal Magnus died in 1988. Magnus served at John Hades from 63 to 69, Archbishop Keough High School from 69 to 72, St. Joseph High School from 72 to 82, Townsend Catholic High School from 82 to 84, and the Tribunal Office, which is high up, from 84 to 88. He was also appointed to the faculty of John Carroll High School. You remember that being mentioned?
Mm-hmm.
In 64, and assisted at St. Jane Frances de Chantal, Pasadena in 1969. St. Lawrence Woodlawn from 69 to 82, and St. Joseph Fullerton from 84 to 88. So
he was in St. Lawrence at the same time he was in Keough, roughly.
So yes, he was doing dual. I don't know if it would have been teaching, but he was. So here's Joseph Maskell, right?
Right.
In 1992, an individual alleged sexual abuse by Father A. Joseph Maskell between 1968 and 1972. 68 is still before 69. I just want to point that out.
Yeah.
Maskell denied the allegation but agreed to undergo residential evaluation. The initial allegation could not be corroborated. BS. I call BS on that one.
Yeah, they do know what
because the previous boy is the corroboration. I mean, and somehow they lost that. Why? Because she didn't file paperwork and go through all the BS that would have left him where he was at and nothing would have happened. This is why it's not in this record here. I'll tell you that right now, because she went straight to the horse's mouth and they dealt with it immediately without any paperwork. After additional allegations of abuse surfaced in 1994, look how long it took for them to say that they had any credible allegation. No way. The Archdiocese placed Maskell on a leave of absence and removed his faculties. That means he cannot act as a priest, right?
Yeah.
He can't have mass and consecrate and everything. He did, and can't, do confession and stuff. He died in 2001. Maskell served at Sacred Heart of Mary, Baltimore from 65 to 66. St. Clement, Lansdowne from 66 to 68. Now, mind you, these would all be parishes where he said masses, where he would have access to altar boys. And Our Lady of Victory from 68 to 70. He lived and assisted at St. Clement Lansdowne while serving at Archbishop Keogh High School from 1970 to 75. Maskell began serving part-time at Archbishop Keogh High School in approximately 66. Interesting to find that out, right? Because that means that what they did was they just removed him from the other place and put him full-time in the other place when that boy's mom went crazy, right? And the division of schools from 75 to 80. He served at Annunciation from 80 to 82, Holy Cross from 82 to 92. Now, these all mean that these are parishes, which means it's possible they have grade schools,
Right.
but he would at least have access to altar boys. And St. Augustine, Elkridge from 93 until being placed on administrative leave till 1994. You see this?
What?
There's still nothing bad about him in here. Not really.
It makes it look, it's all allegations and suspicions, but even then it's like, could not be corroborated. Yes, it could.
So let me show you. This is my archdiocese. Okay. So I went to our list because I was looking for our priest. Now ours is listed a little differently than theirs. And here's the priest.
Right.
Leroy Valentine. He was ordained in 1977. He died in 2020, and he was removed from ministry. So he was completely kicked out of the priesthood.
Mm-hmm. And rightly so.
Right.
Yes.
And here they'll tell you where all the priest was and everything, but yeah, it's a shame. And I'll show you that this really is the Archdiocese of Baltimore here, just in case somebody says, "Oh no, it's not." Yeah, it is. Archdiocese of Baltimore. So, and anybody can go and look at any archdiocese. They're all on there because after the abuse, now that they're trying to, be more open. And I have to admit, I don't know what Baltimore was. What? Oh no, sorry. Yeah, I know.
It's always like, oh, right.
Yeah, only momentarily. Just blink your eyes. We had a really wonderful Archbishop Carlson, who when they started handing over, when they said they wanted bishops to hand over names to the Secretary of States in each state. Ours was actually the first to do it. He handed over 200 names over to the state's attorney and all the information they had on them. So that made me very pleased. But, we also had a really great archbishop that was here that then got moved to Philadelphia. Philadelphia was another one that had really bad stuff. Yeah. And he got moved there right as in the middle of their whole thing. And so he basically got the blame for how it wasn't handled properly and everything, because he got moved there in the middle of it. The whole thing was really bad, but had it been handled properly, the church would have never been in the predicament they were in. And I hate to say this, but I do think that it has something to do with the fact that it's run by men. Not to say that men are bad, but men's perspective is one way. Women look at things from this way. And I think in the same way, parenting children works better when you have two different perspectives. I think trying to run something this large, it would be nice to have the other perspective.
It would be nice to have the input. They've got people
Right.
who are committed to the church who could very easily
Now,
do that.
at the lower levels, right, at the parish level, that's not it's not like that, right? So there's lots of women involved at the parish level. But the hierarchy who determines basically the rules and regulations, right? It's all the bishops, you know, either sitting in Rome or the cardinals when they all get together. I mean, the bishops go over there at least once to the Vatican, and they have these meetings and stuff, and they talk about the problems in their parishes or whatever, and they try to come up with ways of handling all these things across the board. But it's kind of like working for a really large company. You're so far down the line that you're no longer a person. You're no longer a person anymore. You're a number.
It should never be like that. It should never be like in any organization.
Right. Right.
It shouldn't be like that anywhere. You should always be able to have
well, and it takes so long from information to trickle.
Yes.
Down from Vatican all the way down. It's not like they take out a press release and they hand it out in all the churches, the day after it happens, or the Sunday after it happens. They don't do that, right? So you might find out 10 years after the Vatican said, here's the new rule, or here's how we're going to handle these circumstances. It's quite ridiculous. They kind of need to they kind of need to realize that communication needs to be better between them and the people at the bottom, because that's why this happens.
Especially now that we've got like a ways of communicating that are instant. There's no excuse for this information to take so long. It should be available to the people who are part of the church, so that all know what's happening. That's the best way to do it.
Like an example, they decided they were going to redo the New American Bible Translation, right? And that's what they use in the church. That's what they read from in church at the masses. And by the time they got it done, it took, I don't know, between 5 and 10 years for those versions to get down to to all the parish. It's, well, you have to there has to be a better way. There had to have been a better way for this to be handled. Yeah. This could have been handled, and Sister Cathy, heck, she might still be alive,
Yeah. It's a shame. Because she was such a beloved person,
Serious defrocking there. They haven't always made that information public. No, but they have to now. But it's buried, right? You have to go looking for it. It's not like front page. Now, our Archbishop at the time, Archbishop Carlson, now we have a new one now, and I don't know a lot about him yet, and I haven't had a lot of interaction because, COVID has kind of
it's put them
really
off everybody's.
Yeah.
Really.
Right. So, well, I mean, we still have to wear masks in church, and you have to be all spread out. And my whole thing is the mass that I go to, there's a lot of old people there, and I would rather let the old people go to mass. I'll be able to go to mass without a mask when all this is over and not have to worry about, let them go. I can watch it on TV for right now, and that's fine. Let them go and, do what they need to do. I just, I think it's really sad, and I think it's really sad that that guy that they talked to at the end, was his name Gary? I think his name Gary. I don't know. I watched it again, trying to pick up his name again, and I didn't get it, but and maybe he didn't say it. I don't know, but it bothers me a lot that he went from that allegation to an all-girl Catholic high school and then run amok. Yes. And then Sister Cathy ended up dead. What I would like to know is, who did Sister Cathy go to? Who did she go to and say something to? Because it's very possible the way that the hierarchy works, she should have gone to her mother of her, whatever convent she was in, right? And it would have been up to that sister to go, through the archdiocese hierarchy to whatever, to say whatever. And it's very possible that's what mucked up the works right there, that, that sister might have gone to Maskell directly. I mean, maybe she knew. There's all kinds of things that could have happened, and it's sad to even think those things. But at this point,
like, you could have had. She tells the sister. The sister assumes the girl is lying, and goes to, Father Maskell could never do such a thing. It must be a lie. I must tell him.
Okay, I don't know what's up with Streamlabs, but I went to Streamlabs and Streamlabs is not hooked up. I don't know what that's about. I can't get rid of it, so I apologize to anybody that Streamlabs.
Leisha just getting told, stop posting links, Leisha. Leisha will know you're not posting links.
Well, the funny thing is Nightbot is the one that's supposed to be doing that. I don't know where Streamlabs is coming from, because I'm not even going through Streamlabs, so I don't even know.
StreamYard, I don't even. How rude!
I know.
It shouldn't even be. It's crashing the party.
Streamlabs is feeling left out. Now, one time I did use the Streamlabs thing, but I've totally disconnected from it, so I don't know what that's all about.
Sorry,
Trying to watch, but modem is out and only getting 2 seconds at a time. Ha ha ha. First world problems. Hoping to rally and be able to go exchange it by 6 p.m.
Take a quick bathroom break.
Oh, yeah, go right ahead. We'll have to wait till Monday because I never leave my house. Oh, okay, that's fine. You can always watch it on the rerun. The reruns help me out anyway, more than and while we're doing this, please everybody make sure that you have subscribed to the channel. I still have more non-subscribers watching the channel than subscribers. So if you're watching the channel, please hit the subscribe. If you want to get notified or attempt to get notified, please hit the bell and click the all button. Share this out on your social media, or share the channel out on your social media so we can get more people in here for conversations. I also have a Discord. Discord is the best place to get a hold of me outside my live streams. We kind of, sometimes get goofy in there. We share, funny pictures, any kind of stuff like that. So if you guys could help me out with that, I would really appreciate it. I still am stunned that I have more people not subscribed watching my stuff than subscribed.
Yeah, me too.
I will tell you though, I'm catching up on the search for. I'm catching up to you. You and I are you're 1 and I'm 2 and I'm catching up.
You can have it.
No, it just amuses me. Leaping Lizard said, I'm listening, haven't been able to type, but enjoy listening. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying listening. Yeah, so this case is really hard, and I really do hope they solve it, but it's really, really tough.
DNA at the last count, it wasn't Maskell's, but they did have DNA. So
was that from the cigarette, though?
I think it was from the car. Not from.
I thought they had a fingerprint from the car, and they had DNA from the cigarette.
Maybe I'm getting confuddled. I'll take your word for it because you've seen it 3 times, and I've seen it. The second time was wrong. But I know that I had that. It wasn't his, but
no.
Chances of being able to locate somebody who's still alive who it matches is not good.
Well, no, because of course you follow my one of my theories, and you had people disposing of the body. It's the cigarette butt is probably theirs. Yeah. It's possible the fingerprint is theirs, so that still wouldn't necessarily tell you who killed her.
No.
And one of them they could get DNA from. The other one is dead. I doubt they would exhume the body for that. And no.
It's the thing that it's a big deal to exhume a body. Even if the evidence is sketchy at best to sort of
right.
to dig.
I mean,
somebody up.
unless the family agreed to it. I mean, if the family agreed to it because they want to, they would do it. But yeah, I don't know how they're going to figure it out. I hope they do, though. I hope that I think there could be people that could come forward. I think there could be girls that, if they could get over their fear of the church or who might find out. I mean, Maskell's dead at this point.
Yes, Maskell got early onset dementia, didn't he?
Yes,
Yeah.
and he died in that home.
And in his 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't, because I remember Jean saying it was well deserved.
It's almost a shame he didn't get a transmitted disease.
Yeah, well.
Of course, he was, he was young girls. How was he going to get that, right? Young Catholic girls, they're not necessarily running around. Not back then, they weren't running around like they do now.
Well, even then, though, it's just like, it's one of the injustices of this case is that he did, and therefore couldn't be held accountable and never will be.
Right. Mrs. Roger Rabbit says it seems to be a common field for pedos to go into. Cambodia is dealing with their monks right now. And here's the thing that people don't understand, right? Like, this is not just happening in the Catholic Church. No. It's in every religion. It's in every school. It's in every job. I mean, it's all over.
Potential to happen anywhere where there's secret keeping and a lack of candor and a tendency to cover things up, and obviously where you've got a gathering of evil people who are into kids, and then they're all band together and defend each other, and it's got the potential to happen anywhere. As we know, Epstein was known the world over. Well-known man, powerful man. So was
right. It's the same. It really is the same thing, right? Yeah. You got all these powerful people. Okay, I mean, I have some pretty credible information from Catholic resources that this stuff currently still runs all the way up to the Vatican. It's not just
right. Well, it can't be like just at the law, even though the Vatican would like to go. Oh no, it's not that simple.
Right.
Because and going, I had no idea they were doing any of this.
And yeah. Well, and then you have people that say, well, if the Catholic Church would just come with the times and let priests, get married, that's not really the answer.
No, that's not the answer. That's the furthest thing from the answer.
Because going in, going in what the rules are, right? If you can't abide by the rules, then don't do that. You can be a deacon. You can be a deacon. You can be a permanent deacon. You can get married. You can have a normal family, and you can still do everything with the priest at mass except consecrate the host. You can do baptisms. You can all this stuff, right? No,
but it's not even that. It's the concept that somebody who is abusing children can be cured by having a wife.
Right. Yeah.
Where does this thought process?
Right. They have a problem. It's the problem that needs to be dealt with.
Yes.
It's, just letting them,
If that was the case, then people who are married would not be pedophiles and abusing children as we speak. Unfortunately, that's very common as well. So that's not the cure. No, there is no cure.
Right. Well, the only thing that can help with this is better mental health. I mean, across the board, everybody's having problems with it. COVID is been an exacerbator of it. I mean, somebody at some point is going to have to stand up. Somebody in power who can, do something about it is going to have to stand up and say, we need better mental health, and we need it now because people are suffering. And it's not just that these, I mean, let's face it, every serial killer we've looked at, every, crazy true crime story we've looked at, there is some mental health issue there. And a lot of times they knew it early on, but they didn't deal with it, or they couldn't deal with it, or they didn't know how to deal with it.
Well-adjusted people who are happy with their lot don't kill people.
Right.
They just don't. People who are safe and happy in their life, and there's always some impact from a mental health issue. It's not to blame the mental health issue, absolutely not, but there's always something involved in that mix. Apart from the one, there's a couple of them. I mean, Ted Bundy didn't have much excuse for what he did,
Right.
like with his upbringing. Apart from his mother was too protective of him. With all
Right,
this,
but there's a lot of kids grow up with overprotective parents and they don't grow up like that. I mean, there is some sort of disorder going on there that causes,
I think he was probably born like that. There is research now to support that psychopaths in particular can actually be born that way because their brain is physically different from other people's.
Right.
So they have, like, they're born with a different shape of brain. And this can be caused through life. If you hit your head,
Right.
if you have an injury, it can turn you into a psychopath because that part of your brain is impacted. And I found that really interesting because it's kind of upsetting that somebody's a psychopath and they're just getting on with their life, and how upsetting and how perturbing it must feel to not feel anything. I can't even begin to imagine living your life, because people do, and they're perfectly productive members of society who live with no emotion.
Loopy Lisa, if Leisha was timed out, it was because Streamlabs, I don't know what the heck's wrong with it, thought that she posted a link. But I don't even have it connected to the channel anymore, so I don't know how that's even possible because I just don't even know. I don't even know what to do to stop that now. Streamlabs came in and said she had posted a link, but I saw her post. But if she's not able to post now, she might have been timed out, but she'll be able to post again as soon as whatever timer is out, but I don't know what it is.
It's a maximum of 300 seconds, I think. Well, it is on the normal timeout.
Yeah, you can't tell them to time them out for more. No, Lisa, we know she didn't post a link. We have a rogue bot that invaded our chat.
Have you been listening to what we're saying? She hasn't, has she? Right.
No, no, she obviously didn't hear us before when it first popped up.
But did apologise to Leisha because Streamlabs is nuts. It did the same thing to Evie the other night. It did the same thing to Evie. It told her to finish stop post. She's just said, I know it was StreamYard thing again. It told me off for saying I was walking the dog. It did. Stop posting things. Look, sorry, odd. Don't be sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I don't know how to fix it because I don't know. I mean, I went for a sausage. Okay, I am not touching that. I'm not touching that with 100-foot pole.
I'm not touching that sausage at all.
Evie, it's disconnected. It's disconnected completely. Streamlabs is not in my mods. I don't
know how it's doing it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just double checked the mods yesterday. Streamlabs is not there. I don't know what that's about.
Messaging them to go, how on earth is your mod still in my?
If the worst thing it does is time out people hopefully can understand.
Yeah.
I have no control over it.
Like you could have like a lottery, couldn't you? Like who is Streamlabs gonna time out tonight? Who's gonna be the lucky winner?
I'm guessing it's some sort of glitch. I don't know if it glitched like when I cut it off or what. I don't know, but something must have glitched.
Oh dear. Right, so let me see. So who do you think did it? Let's get to the meat of the matter.
Who actually killed her? I have no clue. I do think Maska was involved. Yes. I do think it's possible that I think your theory on Coob could be right. I think he could have done it. I think that there could have been this Brother Bob that did it. I think it could have been, quite honestly, any of the police that were in there. And I mean, there really is a huge gamut of people it could be, but taking the suspects out of this show, I don't think that the two uncles story, I don't think that they were killers. I think that if they were involved,
They were body movers, maybe.
I think they were body disposers. I think that's, and I don't think that they like thought that up on their own where they were going to do that. I'm sure they were told exactly what to do.
Yes.
And how to do it. Because I'm sorry, but the one guy, well, just yeah, the one guy certainly doesn't seem like he would have been intelligent enough to come up with that on his own. Like the car thing and everything, like no.
Because from this, obviously they mentioned Joyce Malecki earlier on because she was abducted shortly after Sister Cat. But I feel that those two crimes were completely unrelated.
I I agree with you. I think that if Sister Cathy's murder had been a random killing, I think that it's possible they could have been related then, that the murders would have been related then. But because it was very clear from everything presented anyway that Sister Cathy's murder was by somebody she knew.
That's right. And that's, for me, makes me think that Joyce's is probably by somebody she knew. Her murder was very personal. She was bound. She had a throat cut. It was a completely different MO. And she was dumped face down in a river, which is a really horrible way to discard a body.
Right.
And obviously, sadly, her crime is still unsolved as well. Her murder is still unsolved.
Right.
And off the back of that, I was considering looking into that murder a little to get some more detail, because they covered it briefly but not much.
Yeah, they didn't go into much detail on that because it really was more about Sister Cathy. They just happened to throw that in because it was an aspect that the police looked at. And I mean, obviously, I hope that her murder is also solved, just because I hate for murders to go unsolved, just because it, not that I don't even think it really gives closure to the family, but at least they know, they have a finality to knowing what happened.
Well, that's what the family of Suzanne Morphew said. The lady who went missing on Mother's Day. They've said our brother was out looking for her, and they said, "Would you rather find her, or even if she's dead?" And he was like, "Yes, I would rather know what happened." At least,
yeah, most people that have missing family members will say that too. They'd rather have something than continuing on with this unknown forever.
That's why I like to do the door cases, which I've kind of lost track of, but
I want to start back up doing that because
somebody somewhere's lost that person.
Yeah,
it's not that she's
and
not,
somebody out there knows.
Yes,
I mean, somebody out there knows something.
Absolutely. And the thing is with them, the bigger YouTubers will not cover them because they don't get big views. But I'm still gonna keep thrashing away here.
Yeah, at this point, I'm not as worried about views. I mean, granted, I would like to grow to the point that there's a decent amount of people coming in here, and you can have more interesting conversations with, because instead of only having the two of us having watched this or three of us having watched this, maybe we could have 10 people that have watched this, and everybody thinks a different person did it, right? Yeah. So I like that, but you know what? I'm not going to. And I've done all the research of, what you do to grow your channel really fast and all that kind of stuff. And the thing that I want to provide is I want to provide to people me, right? The things I'm interested in. And if they're interested in any of those things too, that's great. Then they can join us, right? Yes. I'm not about, bringing drama just to get views, or, big cases because they get views, or trying to one up people on a news story because it gets views. I don't mind going back and covering stuff that's already been covered 100 times from my perspective, because my perspective is different than everybody else's perspective.
That's right. And it's interesting to revisit older cases as well. Basically, you do what you like. I think what my theory was I went through phases of trying to do different stuff with my channel in the past, and it never worked for me because I wasn't interested in it. And I now started doing things I love and that I enjoy, and I really enjoy my channel again. And that's what it was there for in the first place.
Right. Well, look, I started out mostly gaming, right? Yeah. And I wanted to dive into true crime, and then I started doing that. And Maria and I were doing the Saturday talks, and COVID really kind of killed that. Not because I'm not interested, but because the court cases, like the courts were shut down, right? So it's going to take a little while for that stuff to start revving back up again. But you know, then I bought my Jeep, and now I'm doing all this Jeep stuff, and I've been taking video, and so I you know, I did that drive, and I played it. What? Yeah, and so, you know, maybe the true crime people don't like the Jeep stuff, but you know, it doesn't matter to me. Either like my stuff or you don't. You can only watch part of it. You can watch some of it, and or not. You know, I don't care. I'm not about catering to people. I mean, granted, I do.
It's because they like you,
right?
And generally, it's because they like the host of the channel. So if that's
why people are here, I'm fine with that, because, you know, I actually have I've seen a couple of things lately on various channels that kind of actually irritates me a bit, and I really don't understand why it happens. You know, like allowing screaming matches, or letting the chat try to tell you what to do. It's your channel. You know, if somebody doesn't like that we're talking about the keepers right now, they don't have to watch this episode.
No.
You know, like they don't have to listen to this one. They don't have to stay here and tell us, you know, I don't really like that, or I don't like the Catholic Church, or you know, like they don't have to tell you that. They can just, there's something else out there they can go watch, right? And I think sometimes creators are too involved in, oh, I got to grow my channel. Oh, I got to grow my channel. Oh, I got to grow my channel. That the important people that are coming to watch them kind of get discarded, or they get aggravated, because, you know, it's like, well, why all of a sudden are you letting this person kind of, you know, take over something that, you know, if this is your rule, then bye bye. This is why I don't ever say, like, no politics and no religion discussions. You know, granted, you can't have those with everybody.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to allow them if people can have them civilly with each other.
We wouldn't be having this discussion this evening if
Right.
you had that
Right.
rule.
Right.
You can't discuss this documentary without discussing religion. You can't. It's
right. Right.
So it'll be like, so this nun died. We've got no idea why. End of video.
Yeah, here's our suspects.
Yeah, here's our suspects, but we don't know why they're connected to anything.
Right. Yeah, it kind of doesn't work, you know.
Religion and politics is connected to everything.
They really are, and quite honestly, religion and politics, your views on religion and politics are typically formed through your belief system, right? And if you can't I mean, what can you discuss if you can't discuss those things?
Yeah.
Politics to corruption. This case seems to go up multiple hierarchies. You're right. It does involve politics, because you know, that one police, the police, the one policeman, right? He became chief, or he was running for the chief was running for re-election. Remember that? That was part of this too.
Every time.
Yeah.
He was going to bat for the church, wasn't he? Every time they tried to run something through, and they thought they had a strong case, they took him, like, it was 200 witnesses.
You know, I don't know if people understand this, but trying to say that, you know, and over here they're really trying, they're like, you know, the Constitution, you know, has separation of church and state. The separation of church and state was actually meant to keep the government out of religion, not to keep religion out of. I mean, you know, you can't be Catholic, become president of the country, and it doesn't some sort of affect your decisions, right?
Yeah,
like, you can't do that.
No.
So, but what I don't understand is, if I don't even think people realize this, if all of the Catholics in this country, right, all the Catholics across this country voted for one person, like voted for one person for president, that person would become president.
Yeah.
That's how many Catholics there are in this country.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that.
So you
Yeah.
can't tell me that you could separate. I mean, now granted, all Catholics do not vote for the same person. It's quite apparent, but
That's because all Catholics know, even if somebody's not a Catholic, they look at the attributes of the person and not the religion of the person.
right, you're not voting for some. Well, okay. So there are people out there that vote for people because, you know, they're white or black or yellow or purple or male or female or, you know, Democrat or Republican or independent, or there are people that vote like that. But to me, they're really wasting their vote. They're not really putting forth their effort that they should as a civilian, right? You should be voting because this is the person that most aligns with what you want.
That's right. Absolutely. It doesn't matter what color they are, what they believe in, what their faith is. If they are their policies in line with what your needs are. You know, are there policies in support of your ethics and, you know, your morals, and do they feel right for you?
Right.
Then that's what you're voting for, isn't it? That's how it works for me. That's how I vote. I've voted for people I'm not that keen on because.
So Lisa says, I think it's good to debate anything. As long as you are respectful and listen, then all good. Oh, and as long as you have the same opinion as me, obviously. That's not true. That's not true. You know what Lisa and I had to talk about the other night?
Oh, yes. Tell me.
Abortion.
Ah, right. Well, yeah, you can, though.
You can have that conversation, and she actually disagreed with me.
Yeah,
And she's rethinking some things. She's rethinking some things about it because we talked. And we talked. That's what we did. She said her opinion. I said mine. I told her why I thought this way. She told me why she thought that way. Okay, so you can have that conversation and not come out of it no longer being friends because you can't have a conversation. I mean,
exactly.
you don't have to. I really wish that the masses would understand this. You don't have to agree with people. Just like this case, you don't have to agree with who you think did it.
No.
You know, you don't have to agree. You should be able to have the conversation, though.
Absolutely.
If you can't have the conversation, it's the person who can't have that conversation that actually has the problem.
Yes. And you miss out on so much, though, if you don't. The shame for me is when I'm having a conversation with somebody who might have a contrary view and they start booting off.
Right.
Start losing their temper. And you can't then continue that conversation. It's kind of pointless then. And then you lose out on their perspective.
Right.
And that they have the right to their opinion and the right to express themselves as long as they're respectful. And they don't, when they lose their temper, I always feel bad because I'm like, well, that's that discussion out of the window. We can't talk about that now because you've lost your temper. And now I don't feel comfortable broaching the subject with you. So that conversation will likely never happen.
Right.
And it's a shame.
I agree. You know, it's like I told Lisa, I said, you know, a lot of times people don't want to talk religion because they think that it's not a discussion, that it's you're going to try to turn me and I'm going to try to turn you. And that's not what it's supposed to be about, right? I told her, I said, you know, the best example of this is in the Bible, it talk about the mustard seed. The mustard seed is the smallest seed of all the seeds, yet it grows the largest tree, right? You plant a seed and you don't know what's going to happen. You plant the seed and you let it go, and what happens, happens. You know?
Yeah. That's it, and you just, how can you know that you are actually contrary to something unless you've heard what the full details and experience somebody has had with that thing is as well. Like, if you don't want to believe something, I think unless then your perspective isn't balanced. Yes, you're going to have natural leanings. You're going to have natural leanings towards things, and that's something that we can't help.
Right.
But I always think, unless I know what somebody else's perspective is from that contrary opinion, who is I've been able to talk to rationally about it, and there's been no shouting match, I always feel like I don't know about it as like I should.
Loopy Lisa says, we've respected each other's opinions and we're understanding of each other's side. That's what people need to do. I mean, it's not really about changing people's mind because everybody has to think like you. That's not what this is about.
No.
I mean, if everybody was the same, this would be the most boring place.
It really would.
Ever. I mean, look at you and I. We have discussions all the time about different things. And, and here, I am this very conservative Catholic and you're like this witchy woman,
Witchy liberal.
So, but we have no problems having discussions.
No, we don't.
I think
Even
everybody should be able to be that
subjects
way.
aren't always easy to discuss. They're not always, but as long as you understand. And I find often there's middle ground.
Right.
It's sometimes your beliefs aren't as contrary as you think.
Well, there's pieces of similarities,
Mhm.
right? And you can go, and if nothing else, at the end of the day, you can go, okay, well, then I understand where this person's coming from now because this is where they're coming at it from.
Yes.
Right? I don't have to agree with that, and maybe that's not my beliefs or my views, but they're entitled to theirs, and they're just coming at it from a different angle. So you just understand, okay, we're just going to agree to disagree on this one.
And the way, I mean, what I've found is like witchy woman.
I know she'd like. I knew she'd like that.
The whole thing with like religion, like I've had this discussion. I think that people using things for good and bad. I forget the name of the bloke who wrote it, but there was a essay many moons ago. It's like ancient, but it's called An Apology for Poetry. And at the time, everybody was kicking off about poetry, saying it was evil.
Mm-hmm.
Poetry was evil because the poems that were written were expressing things that the audience weren't comfortable with. And what this author was basically saying was that don't blame the play, right? Don't blame the game, blame the player or whatever it was. Basically,
right.
He said don't blame the poetry. The poetry is just a tool.
Mm-hmm.
The way that people use it is what the issue is. So you can use poetry for good or bad. Now this happens with religion.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I specifically picked up with, something that upset me as somebody who isn't Catholic, about the way these priests described their body fluids when they were abusing these girls. I found really.
It's a good thing he's dead, is all I can say.
Oh,
because let me tell you,
because I found it upsetting. It made me feel nauseous, and I'm not at the cat. So how it must have felt, I don't know. But it's people. That's a prime example of an evil person using something holy and sacrosanct, and so important for something so horrible.
Right.
And it really upset, because I know how people feel about it, and I'm a supporter of everybody's faith. Believe in anything you want, and it just really upset me, and it upset me as a darn pig. I was just like, this is horrible. I hate the way people, and even as somebody who doesn't believe in a monastic God, I hate people using God as an excuse to say and do horrible things. It really upsets me. And that exists in everything in life. People will always find an excuse. Like, people blame religion for war. Religion is not the reason for war. People are the reason for war. It's always going to be.
And you were just talking about that essay, but about poetry, right? And they were talking about poetry. Well, think about this. Think about what they do with the Bible, right? Okay. Now, being Catholic, I've always been taught you have to take everything in the Bible in context, right? Like, you can't just go, here's a line, plug it out. And this is my life right here, right? This is what I'm gonna adhere. No, you have to take it in its entirety. It's almost like if you read a Stephen King book and you only read 2 lines of it. I mean, it's gonna be some messed up stuff.
Yeah.
Most of the time. But but in you read the whole book and you get this story. Okay. I see so many religions, so many pastors in different faiths. I mean, Christian faiths that are not Catholic, that they take, these one-liners out of the Bible, right? And then they preach on it, like what their interpretation of this one line out of the Bible, and people buy it because they're only taking that line. So you're taking it verbatim, but then you think about it as a, fairly educated person, you think about this and you go, okay, well, what language was the Bible written in? Well, first of all, it traveled through language,
Yes.
Verbal language for many years before it was ever written down.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, Catholic monks were the first ones that produced a Bible. That's for all those people out there that, like to argue that. But then when it was started to be written down, it's not like it was written down in English,
No.
And it wasn't even written in Hebrew first either. And then you think about the English translation nowadays is all taken from the Greek. So what was it written down in first before it got to the Greek? And then so you have to think about the fact that you can't really like take each word like that and go, okay, let me pull this sentence out, right? And these are the words that we're going to talk about today. No. Everything in that chapter is a lesson, right? So you take, it's like a school lesson, right? You take that lesson out. You can't take, you don't take biology and go, okay, this is a girl, this is a boy, and now you know how to make babies. Like, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
Right? You can't skip all the other stuff.
All the other bits are missing, yes.
It makes no sense to me.
Well, that's why people say the Bible is contradictory, because in many ways it is, because it says this is wrong, but it also says you must love everybody else. You must care about other people as you would want to be cared about. And it seems contradictory, but isn't it just like a person? Like how people are.
So I have to tell you, you asking that, I have an answer for you. I took a really interesting class in high school. It was Bible studies, and we studied first semester we studied the Old Testament, and the second semester we studied the New Testament, right? Now this is coming from somebody who at that point in their life, like we were not told we had to read the Bible all the time, whatever, because the whole Bible within 3 years, you read the whole Bible at Mass every Sunday. Okay. So, so they're really, I mean, and you think about the fact that like now, I'm 46, almost 47 years old. That's a lot of times of reading the Bible, right?
Yeah.
But what this class taught me was you have to look at it like this. The Old Testament, happened before Christ was born, right? And the Old Testament is more story form, right? So when you read it, it's more story form.
Right.
And so
that's the one that
was there Noah and the ark? Was that actually what happened? This old 100 and some odd year old man went and built an ark with him? No, probably that's not. But the intention that the story, the lesson that the story is trying to portray is the same, regardless of how you look at it, right? Even Genesis, the Garden of Eden. Yes, you can believe that that's what happened, but maybe that's not exactly what happened. Was it necessarily actually a snake, that brought the apple to Eve and said, here?
No, but is the snake a figurative symbol of bad things?
Right. Yeah. Right. So, so you kind of have to look at it like that. And then, when you come to the New Testament, there's it's a whole different ball of wax, because you have a whole different set of rules. The Old Testament is old rules, and those are Hebrew rules. It's not like those are Catholic rules or Christian rules, because Christ wasn't here yet, right? So then you go to the New Testament and you have the new rule. And at the end of the day, Jesus did say that the new covenant that you're making with God is to love one another as I have loved you, right? Now think about that. If you strip down every Christian faith to that one line, wouldn't everything be so much better?
It really would. And that's the principle behind it, though, isn't it? And it's it's the, I mean, I say principle. I know that you believe in it more literally, but for me, it's the thought behind it, and I appreciate that, because it's a similar mindset to mine. And it comes back to, like, I always call the Old Testament God, I call him, he's the angry God. He's quite the angry God.
He's the justice, angry God. Yeah, yep. He's the just and angry God. And God is both those things, right? But what happened? I mean, when you think about it, the root of the story in the New Testament is Jesus came down. He's God become man to show us how to live what he said, right? And what did he do? He sacrificed himself. Okay. Now, if we sacrificed ourselves every day for other people, would we be as selfish as we are in this society right now? Probably not.
No.
How could you be? Right? It's really interesting if you go further into Bible study and you learn how they determined which gospels they were going to put in the New Testament, because really what the New Testament is the story of Jesus's life.
Yes.
As it is known, as they have in writing, right? But there's more gospels out there that were written than what actually ended up in the Bible, right? And it's really interesting if you go and you dig up and learn, how that all came about. I always found it really interesting because for the longest time I didn't realize that the reason why they picked those 4 gospels was because they all agree with each other, and there's corroboration in at least 2 of each other, right? So the other ones, the reason why they didn't make it was because there wasn't corroboration in them. So they couldn't be certain because 2 people weren't telling that story, 2 people weren't saying that same thing, that it was valid, right? Because it could have been somebody really misconstrued the story when they were telling it or whatever. So it's really interesting.
I keep meaning to go and see the Lindisfarne Gospels because they're not far from me. And I keep meaning to, just to be close to a book that's that old. For me, I'm just like,
right,
oh,
right.
It's so old, and a monk drew it, painted it, and the thought of that, the amount of work that went into these things, and it's not that far away from me, and I've never been. And how sinful is that? I have been to Lindisfarne though.
Well, you need to go so I can see.
I keep meaning to go to Lindisfarne, but obviously COVID's kind of put the mock.
Well, I know we're all having that problem. We have to get rid of that.
The world, yeah, we'll just do off with that.
Yeah, we're solving everything else here. We'll get rid of that too.
when the world does return to some sort of normality, I do intend to go. So I'll make a video and I'll show you around and things like that, and take you anywhere, show you anywhere you want to go. Some of the buildings are still standing, but I've always had quite a serene feeling when I visit what we call Holy Island. I've always had quite a serene feeling there. It's always been quite nice. And of course the Selmead, which is wonderful. The Selmead there. So it's always been a really lovely
See,
place.
and this is the thing, if you can't have religious discussion, you miss out on a lot of interesting, not only history, but stories, people's spiritual movings. I mean, as a Catholic, there's a lot of Catholic apologists, a lot of very popular Catholic apologists that they were not what they call cradle Catholics, right? Born Catholic, right? Yeah. They were another faith and then they became Catholic. And a lot of them, when you listen to their stories, a lot of them said that they were searching and looking for a place that they felt that belonged and made sense to them. And a lot of them, all they did was they started going to mass on a Sunday and they would just sit in the back of the church. And they said it was the only church they had ever been into where they felt God there. They felt Jesus there, right? That says something. There's a reason for that, right? So it's just really interesting. And I, and even going to Catholic school, we were taught about other faiths. We went to other churches. We went to Lutheran churches and Baptist churches. And I mean, I've even been to non-denominational churches. And I think non-denominational churches are wonderful. I mean, they're not as spiritual to me as, going to a mass, but there's certainly nothing wrong with it. I mean, unless...
I once attended a humanist funeral and it was a wonderful funeral. It was wonderful. It was all remembrance of the person, so I quite enjoyed that. That was a really nice experience. It was nice. It was just all about them. I quite enjoyed that.
Lisha says,
we had to say I enjoyed a funeral, but there you go.
Right. Lisha says it's fascinating, WhiteTiger. I was brought up Catholic. I used to say I was a recovering Catholic. I'm open to spirituality of many kinds. I was brought up Catholic. Of course, you always seem to stray away. At least it seemed to me in that, 18 to 25, only because the Catholic Church didn't really have anything to offer to that age group as far as like any kind of socialization or like
Yeah.
they don't do Bible studies uh, like the Baptist Church do, or
You go from
things
like
like that.
a child to a grown up, don't you?
Yeah, kind of. And it was actually Catholic radio, EWTN, and Mother Angelica that really set me on the pace to um, learn what my faith really was supposed to be,
Mhm.
and instead of disagreeing with it, the more I looked into it, the more I realized that it all made sense to me, right?
Mhm.
When you're growing up as a Catholic and young kid in Catholic school, you just do everything because that's what they tell you, right?
Mm.
This is the rule. This is what I mean. It's the same thing with your parents, right?
Yeah.
But they never tell you why. They never tell you why you do these things.
No.
And when you find out that the reason why there are all these rules and regulations and things you need to do, um, when you look at it, like, I mean, this is what I got. This is what I took out of it. The Catholic Church is like your parents, right? Their job is to get you to heaven,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And it's very hard to stay on that path. And humans, are very sinful creatures, right?
We are
So the
poor.
best way to do that is to try to keep you on a very narrow path. And the best way to do that is rules and regulations, right?
Mhm.
And so um as an adult, I understand all those things. All the people that have always said, why do you spend so much on things in the church, right? Mother Angelica, you can YouTube her, EWTN, Mother Angelica. Mother Angelica used to have the best TV show of all times. And even people who are not Catholic love to listen to her because she's a very simplistic, very humble, with health issues, none, right?
Mhm.
Who absolutely, when she took her vows and married Christ, she meant it, right? She just, you know, and 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 she just says some of the most interesting little tidbits. But somebody asked her one time, why did she line when she built her chapel? Why did she line the inside of the monstrance? The monstrance is, I'm sure you guys have seen them on TV or whatever. They're the big things with the stands that they set the consecrated host in as a big circle thing, so that you can do uh, like holy hours and stuff. Okay.
Right.
The order that she's in, they pray in their chapel with with the consecrated, with Jesus exposed there, 24/7. Okay. They take shifts. I mean, they're not all there for 24/7. But somebody asked her why'd she spend so much, because she spent like $10,000 or something for diamonds to line the inside there. And she said very simply, doesn't Jesus deserve the best?
I love that. That's wonderful.
So when he's in there, he sees the best.
Yes.
Well, it makes perfect sense. You're in God's house. Doesn't he deserve the best?
Yeah.
Well, very simply, yeah, I guess
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. I like that.
I did
Even
too.
she loved watching Mother Angelica, and I'm not Catholic. She was funny too. She got he saying the rosary.
Yeah, probably me. Yeah, she's wonderful. Yeah, maybe we should do that
Yeah.
sometime. Maybe we should do that sometime. Like, so everybody watch the same episode of one of the shows and then talk about it, because
That
she's
sounds
something else.
like it sounds like
She has an episode. There's an episode where it is it's like right before Halloween, right at Halloween. Anyway, so the day after Halloween on November 1st is All Saints Day, right? Well, it's like All Souls Day. Anyway, we call it All Saints Day now. And so for Halloween, typically Catholics are supposed to dress up like saints and stuff like that, right? So she decides, and she's not very good with kids, and she admits this, right? And she invites all of these children from a local school to dress up, in their Halloween costumes, which is saints and stuff like that, and come into the TV show. And it's so cute. It's so cute. This little nun who says that, she doesn't get along with kids very well. She's so kind and gentle with them, and it's almost like it kind of takes her to, a place in her childhood. It's just wonderful. And you know what? She had a really hard life. She had a really hard childhood. She had a really quite a terrible upbringing. She had health issues, and she's a wonderful life story. It's just amazing. But she did have a wonderful, wonderful TV show, and yeah, anybody can watch it. She's really a hoot.
I love that as well. I was like Leisha was saying, when just smudging salt her property, she says many wrote Catholic prayers, which is great, because to a certain extent, witchcraft is a craft, which means it doesn't fall with any particular religion.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, the witchcraft itself is just that. It's a craft.
Well, Catholics use blessed salt, so I mean,
and
there's
incense,
not a lot.
Incense,
right.
Swinging it, yeah. So there's a lot. So there's a lot.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
There's a lot of things.
There are so many similarities if you look right at some of these things, just like paranormal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many Catholics that don't believe. First of all, they don't believe in the devil, which makes no sense to me. You can't have good without evil,
no.
right? And they don't believe in ghosts. Okay, yet they say they believe in spirits, right? That we all have a spirit. That's what actually keeps us living and breathing, right? And that our spirit is going to go to heaven someday, right?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, then how could you not believe in ghosts? I mean, just because you use a different word to describe it, right?
I'm assuming they mean that ghost would be up in heaven. It wouldn't be here on the earthly plane.
Except for Catholics also believe in purgatory, right? You have to also believe that there's also a possibility that, like anything else, you can get stuck. You can get stuck, right? Yeah. And we know that the Catholic Church itself believes, well, in many of these things, because otherwise every archdiocese would not have an exorcist available, right? And it's funny when you watch all these shows about paranormal, and a lot of times the bigger and the badder the problem, it doesn't matter what kind of minister or priest, it always ends up in the Catholic Church. It always ends up in the Catholic Church.
Because they're the only ones who make real provision for it.
Mm-hmm.
That just drives that point home, doesn't it? They're the only church that really know that this stuff is real, and we need to supply somebody to deal with it. And they're not they're not as easy to get contact with, these people who are trained to do this, like they used to be, but they're still there. You need
okay. I have to bring this up because this is funny. Okay. Loopy Lisa, I have said, I know what she meant, said many times before, I find it uncomfortable that as an 11-year-old girl, I had to go to confession. I found myself having to make up things because it was impossible I could be without sin. Okay. At 11, that's true. You had sin. I just don't think that it was explained very well. So let me tell you, all through grade school, once a month, we went to confession. Not because we were told we were really bad kids, but I think it's to get you in the habit of it, so that when you're an adult, you realize that, you have this at your disposal, and let me tell you, as somebody who does not go to confession anywhere near as often as they should, I can't tell you how wonderful the feeling is when you walk outside that confessional. I can't even describe it. If heaven is better than that, then we have a wonderful place to look forward to. But when we were kids, they would, I went to Catholic school that was, our principal was a nun, a school sister of Notre Dame. So they would put us in the pews and we'd have to sit like so far apart, right? So you can't reach the other person. You're not supposed to talk. You're supposed to be very, reverent. And here's what's going on. What are you going to say? What are you going to say? Because you feel stupid going in there. Yeah, I fought with my sister. Yes, I disobeyed my parents because, I didn't do the dishes when they asked me to. Those are all sins that at that age you're supposed to tell so that you can get used to this process of confessing your sins, because it's not really, I don't think that it's really that, you have to go to, I don't necessarily think that that's it, although it's much better because I think it's a mental thing for people, seeing somebody there that represents Christ as opposed to looking up at the sky and going, okay, here it is. But actually having somebody there, like, this person, okay, knows what, you're telling them. When you're a kid, yeah, it's just stupid stuff you're telling them, but it prepares you for the bigger things you're going to have to tell them as an adult. My mom is not a big proponent of confession, but after learning more about it and really understanding things better, I can't even understand how freeing it is. And the funny thing is every priest I've ever talked to, they never remember the sins. It's like they walk out of that, they take off that skull, they walk out of that confessional, and they will tell you, thank God he does that for us, because some of the things they hear have got to be god awful, right? And so it's actually wonderful to hear that they say they don't even remember. It's not like when you're going to communion the next Sunday, that they're going, oh my gosh, this one cheated on their spouse. This, like they don't remember, they don't remember, which is a complete blessing.
That's a lovely thing, because it is supposed to be the year of God, isn't it? You're confessing to God via your priest.
Right.
That would make sense that then just goes in one ear and up to God, and
right.
The permission comes down, you pass it back. It's like, I was going to use the analogy of a drive-through window.
Well, they were having COVID did cause drive-through confessionals.
Imagine, that would be really useful, wouldn't it? Like, for the modern Catholic.
Well, what was really nice is back in the day, when I was young, you didn't, some places now force you to go face to face, but back then you had a slider that you could go behind that had a kneeler. Now, granted, you had to go through the painfulness of kneeling the whole time, but you had a slider there. So unless they knew your voice, they didn't know exactly who you were.
Yeah. Yeah. That kneeling thing is, that hurts. Even as a kid, that hurts when nothing hurts when you're a child, but kneeling does for long periods of time. And sort of sitting with your legs crossed. They make kids sit on the floor. You're never given a chair. You're always made to sit on the floor with your legs crossed. Inhumane. It was inhumane. What's your confirmation name? Says Lisa.
Oh, it's Maria Goretti. It's after Maria Goretti.
Oh.
She had somebody that tried to rape her, and she didn't allow it to happen, and he killed her.
Oh, that's a good scene. On that cheerful note, it's been really lovely to talk to you. I could go on more, but
I know you need to go to bed.
I've already discussed, I'm getting old now, and
I know, and that's why I had intended on doing it earlier, and then we both forgot and did the wrong time.
So
next time I'll be better about remembering and then reminding you.
Me too. Yeah. We'll probably, one of us will.
Lisa's is Bernadette.
Oh, I like Bernadette. Nice name.
You want to hear something interesting about confirmation names? So my son, I picked his middle name after my grandfather's middle name, which is obviously a saint because when you're baptized in the Catholic Church. It's so much easier, so you don't have 15,000 middle names. He actually picked that name for his confirmation name. So his middle name is double. So it's Vincent, because he picked Vincent. And he has one Saint Vincent that he chose to align his baptismal name with, and a different Saint Vincent for his confirmation name.
That's nice.
Yeah. What the heck? Streamlabs is picking on Leisha again.
It is.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can do something with Streamlabs, and if not, I'm gonna send off to Streamlabs and a number. You put a number and it made you a bad girl?
My two older sisters. That's all she put, because we can see what she wrote. So my two older sisters used to say he asked altar boys to stay after. They wanted to be altar boys. That's what she typed.
Oh my goodness gracious. All right, I'm going to see if I can put Streamlabs in a timeout permanently. After we get off here.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's been really interesting talking as always.
Thank you for coming. I'm always up for a collab, whether it be on mine or yours. I'm up for any topic that I can possibly talk on.
Absolutely. Well, I think we'll look at maybe we'll look at the new one, the new series that we've both got an interest in that I haven't touched yet. I haven't watched it. It's on my list to watch. And how about I watch that one and then we do a collab?
What one is it?
Oh, what's it called?
And don't forget, everybody, watch The Family, because I do want to talk about that one.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Oh, The Family, yeah.
Yes, that's the one I'm talking about.
Oh, well, we could do that one on yours if you want.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome.
We can flip-flop back and forth. That's fine with me.
We'll flip-flop, but I'll have to. It may take us more than a week to watch.
No. That's fine. You take your time. You let me know when you're ready for it.
I want to be able to watch it, so
I need to rewatch it anyway because it's pretty heavy, and
yeah. I've never.
It's not as well. It's crazy. It's not quite as depressing, I guess, as this one is. I don't even know if that's really the right descriptor, but yeah, I'll get taken care of Streamlabs, I hope. But thank you for coming. I really appreciate this. And Lisa, next time watch it so you can join us too.
Yes, it's called The Family.
And everybody, please remember, hit the subscribe and the bell if you haven't already. I still have more non-subscribers watching the channel than subscribers. I really need you to hit the subscribe button, please. And hit the thumbs up, because the more thumbs up I get, the more likely it is that my family's going to buy me a new mic. So I won't have to wear this headset all the time for the channel. And, of course, Discord. You know, the Discord link is in the About tab if you haven't already found it in the chat here. And it's also in the description of every video that I haven't forgotten to put it into. And but that's really the best place to get me. I do have, like an email address listed, but I never check it. So as most of my mods can attest here, and anybody else in Discord, I'm pretty easy to reach in Discord.
Awesome. Yes, I can testify to that. Absolutely.
All right. So we'll see y'all later. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Kaz. I really appreciate you coming. All right. Bye, everybody. God bless.